Okay, hello everyone. This is Jack Bosch speaking, and welcome to the Forever Cash Gold Club with yours truly, Jack Bosch. Today, September 30th, 2014. It is exactly according to my watch, exactly noon Pacific time, 12:01 Pacific time now, and we are ready to go. I started the background recording so that we can post it afterwards on the Gold member site. I am ready here. Now, first of all, I want to make sure you guys can actually hear me. So I see the first person says hi. Let's see. Oh, there we go. There's a Bill says hi. Margaret says hi. Who else? Can you guys hear me? If you go into the little GoToWebinar question box and put in there whether or not you can hear me, I see we have a whole bunch of people on the line. That is exciting. Okay, great. Good to go. Hear you fine. Yes, hear you loud and clear. Okay, wonderful. Good. So therefore, let's not waste much time. Let's get started right away. Today we are going to talk about land flipping again. And within land flipping, we're going to talk about how to find an area. Now, in the house flipping area, it's very, very simple. So let's first talk about why do we need a special session on how to find an area in the land flipping area versus not in the house flipping area. Well, here's very simple. In the house flipping area, you go and flip houses where there is movement on the housing market. You go very simply in your own hometown or any other bigger city or mid-sized city in the country where there's a regular, normal market, either a hot market or a normal market that you can buy, and there's basically a typical house be on the market for, I don't know, 30, 60, 90 days, and it sells. Well, that's a great market that you can do house flips because and it's very simple. Now, outside of these cities, there's a lot of rural area. There's a lot of land. So the question comes to mind, well, if I do land, where do I focus? I mean, should I focus on the city and go after infill properties in the city? Should I focus on the outskirts of town, and should I focus on the rural areas? Well, very simply, we're going to go through that in a second, but in the meantime, I just want to quickly cover this, that outside of this phone call, of these gold calls, to get support, very simply go to jackboschsupport.com or forevercashsupport.com. Both gets you to the same place. If you have a specific real estate question, you go to jackboschsupport.com. If you have a generic question about the Forever Cash book, the Forever Cash concept, and so on, you can go to forevercashsupport.com. But it really doesn't matter. Both places get answers. We know where you came in through, where you asked the question to, but it goes to my team. All right. So now. The next thing is, so let's jump into how to find an area. Now, how to find an area for land flipping, I pretty much told you already. The thing is, we are in the land area, it's outside the cities, and luckily we're not yet in a country where the majority of all the land is cities. I mean, you look at Hong Kong, there's no land. Hong Kong is a city-state, right? You look at other very small countries with lots and lots of people living in there, and they drive an entire miles and miles, and actually dozens and even hundreds of miles without seeing a lot of land, because it's like just one city next to the other. So therefore the question comes, where do I go and flip land? Well, very, very simply, here's what we usually do. For land under $100,000, which is kind of our sweet spot for the land profit generator technique, you want to flip and buy them either outside of the metropolitan areas, so either outside of the big cities, the major areas like LA, Atlanta, Miami, Phoenix, I don't know, you name it, right? Chicago. Or also smaller metropolitan area like Nashville, Tennessee, like but what is another one? Give me some ideas here to the text box, checkbox here, to the question box. What is another kind of mid-sized cities that are not that big? Memphis, Tennessee. How about something in Louisiana, like St. Louis, Missouri? It's a bigger city, but it's not that big, right? How about Oklahoma City? Thank you. Charlotte, North Carolina. Those kind of places, same thing comes through. Just outside of those areas makes total sense. Omaha, Nebraska, very good. So you want to buy just outside the metropolitan areas. or in large acreage in rural. Or if you want to go into rural areas, you want to go after large acreage, like 20 acres plus. And if you now don't know how much 20 acres is, you can kind of think about it that an American football field is a little bigger than 1 acre. So if you want 1 acre, you basically have a football field. So if you want to have 20 acres, you have 20 football fields next to each other or larger. They're very much in demand right now, these large properties. Or if you want to be in the city, then look for infill properties in cities that are actually growing. Right? So these are the 3 things that we want to go after. So before we actually give you a demonstration of how to actually go about this, I wanna just talk about these 3 areas for just a little bit. So outside the metro areas is really very simple. What I mean by that is you go where the city stops. So if you're looking at an area like Oklahoma City is going to be, there's some skyscrapers there, a few smaller ones, and then there's the inner city, then there's the suburbs, and outside of the suburbs, typically the city ends. Now, if you have a big metropolitan area, then there's usually another layer outside of the suburbs, because the suburbs were built in the 50s and 60s and so on and 70s, but then now in the 90s and 2000s, they built another layer of suburbs outside of the suburbs. They're actually sometimes called exurbs. Actually, as a matter of fact, it's a technical word. You can look it up on Wikipedia and go online and type in exurb, so EXURB, and see what comes up. But basically, the simplest way to think of an exurb is it's the suburb of the suburb. So therefore, in that case, very simply, you go after that is basically where the people move even out beyond the suburbs. And because what happens is that the industry, like the big office complexes, the big companies, they moved into the suburb. Best example is Chicago. Chicago, there used to be the tower, when it's still there, has a different name now. It used to be called Sears Tower. Now, why was it called Sears Tower? Because the company Sears built that tower and moved their headquarters in there. But then over time, what happened is the people moved further out and out and out, and more people, I guess more and more of the employees were complaining. So they, at some point of time, they literally moved out of their own building and built another flat building out in the suburbs of northeast Chicago, and because basically they wanted to be closer to their employees. They wanted to make it easier for the best talent that wants to live in the suburb or wanted to live in the suburb to live close to their headquarters. So they moved a lot of their office space, perhaps not their headquarters, I'm not entirely sure, but a big part of their operations they moved into the suburbs. Now, if the operations are in the suburbs, then guess what? Now if you live in the city, it's going to take you longer to drive there. So therefore what people started doing is they started even more moving to the suburbs, or now in order to save money and get more land for a bigger house for their money, they now moved even further outside, because if the company headquarters is in the suburbs, you can move to the exurbs and still be only 15 minutes from your place of work and away. And that's what happens. So that's in the super large metropolitan areas. The smaller metropolitan areas like Charlotte, North Carolina, Oklahoma cities, they probably don't have exurbs. They only have suburbs. So basically, but even after the exurbs, the city ends. At some point of time, there's just going to be land left. And depending on where you are, that land is either farmland or it's just raw land. And so you have a choice, basically. If you think about what I just said, what's going to happen in the future? As more people move to the United States, as the population grows, and it doesn't even grow internally that much as it grows from immigration, as the country grows in population, and what's going to happen in those areas where more and more people move into? Well, areas like that, like Los Angeles, like Miami, like many areas in Florida, like Phoenix, Arizona, like Tucson, Arizona, like Austin, Texas, like Houston, Texas, they are growing, and they can only grow in 2 directions: vertical or horizontal. Vertical means building more high-rise buildings. Well, but where are you going to put high-rise buildings? You're going to put those into inner cities where there's no more empty land, where people want to, well, it's a certain segment of the market wants to pay $1 million for a 500 square foot condo just to be close to the bars and close to those kind of places, and the restaurants and the banking center and so on. But a lot of people also, but it doesn't make sense to build a 15-story or 25-story skyscraper apartment complex in the suburbs of Schaumburg, Illinois. It doesn't make sense. The land it just doesn't calculate. It's much more expensive to build upwards vertically than it is to build off to the sides. So therefore what happens is most of the development in growing areas grows sideways, grows horizontally. So that means that wherever the exurbs or the suburbs, wherever the city, actually the houses end right now, it's only temporarily. I mean, it's only logical, right? If your city is growing, it's going to go further, expand, and go further out and out and out. So therefore, just buying or flipping just a couple of miles outside of where the metropolitan area ends is a very logical thing to do, because that's where prices are very cheap still, where you can still buy an acre for $10,000 or $20,000. But at the same time, that's where the city is moving to. So whoever is willing to take a longer term investment and buy a few acres and sit on them for the next 10 or 20 years has an extremely high chance that this 10 or 20 acres is not going to be worth $100,000 or $200,000. Let's say $100,000, since that's the maximum of what we invest in, or perhaps $80,000 to $100,000. But it's very likely that in 10 or 20 years this property is worth $3 million. So it's a very cool retirement investment for people to do that want to buy properties from us. So we, however, on the same time, we take a 10 acre piece like that, that's probably worth $80,000 to $100,000 right now. We buy that thing for $25,000, or we put an option on it, or put it on a contract for $25,000, and then we flip it very quickly to a person like that for about $60,000. So they're excited because they know it's worth 80 to 100. They're getting a bargain at 60, and then they're holding on to it and letting it appraise and appreciate in value, so that down the road, 10 years, 20 years down the road, it'll perhaps be worth $3 million. Now, we don't know if it will be worth it. We don't promise it will be worth that amount of money. But that's the game that people play outside of the metropolitan areas. Now, that's one segment of our market. That's the market that if you can be right outside any metropolitan area that's growing, that's where you do the most deals that you sell for quick cash wholesale without having to offer financing. Now, the other segment of land is large acreage in rural areas. So large acreages in rural areas is what you go there after is, well, exactly that. 10 or 20 acres or more, ideally, like I love 40-acre parcels in rural areas, because in rural areas prices are not going to go up anytime soon. So in rural areas, this is not a appreciation game. That the appreciation is not a reason why people buy this land from you. What is a reason is recreation and farming and being away from it all, and being away from the world that is loud and noisy and dangerous, and basically it's attractive to people who want to just have a place out in the green area, a little property with some wood and a creek going through it, and where they can put a little cabin and just relax on the weekend. Or it's attractive for the people that think that the world is going to end someday. They want some place where they can farm, where they can put their own grains in there, and where they can be off the grid. So that's the doomsday preppers that basically have they don't want anything to do with the world, or they at least want to be prepared that if a major thing happens in the world, they can support themselves. They can support themselves. By the way, Bill Graves here, one of our listeners here on the call right now, he's just mentioned that he has a friend who bought 640 acres, or basically entire square mile, of farmland for around $100,000, and he sold it 35 years later for $2.9 million. That's exactly the game that we are talking about here. And by the way, there's a lot of farmers, professional farmers in some markets that play that game. In Phoenix, Arizona, farmers do this all the time. Farming in itself is not very profitable. So they buy farmland outside, several miles outside of the city. They produce the farm. They probably break even, make a little bit of money. But every 10 years, they have to basically sell the entire farmland to the next developers for like $8 million, and they go buy more cheap farmland further out, move their place, move their house, and put another house in. Perhaps they live in a mobile home or something like that, and move everything over there, and then they start with the farming over there again, because it has been very profitable to them, because every 10 years they're making millions of dollars, and they're basically using that to supplement their farming and have fun doing farming. But the real money they don't make in the farming, they make in the land that they buy and hold for many years and operate and then sell it to developers. So, but back to the large acreage in rural areas. So in rural areas, the game is not an appreciation game. The game is a recreational game, is a safety game, and is a bragging game, because people just want to buy something cheap, big acreage outside, and say, hey, listen, look at that. I want to go to their friends and like, hey, well, and drop kind of little side comments. Oh, no, this weekend I can't go bowling because we're going out to our ranch. And the friends are like, what do you mean your ranch? Yeah, we just bought a ranch out in Texas and outside of Austin, right? 100 miles outside of Austin, in the middle of nowhere, 150 miles, 200 miles outside of Austin or outside of Houston. And yeah, we're going out there to just go do a little hunting, do a little farming, hang out with the family, we're building a cabin and so on and so forth. And people are like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And so they're now the heroes of their friends. Don't underestimate what people do to be the hero of their friends. The third kind of properties that you can find using this technique is infill properties in cities that are growing. Now, why do I say in cities that are growing? Because you can find infill properties in Detroit right now, and Detroit is not growing. So therefore, infill properties in Detroit is stuff that, well, to put it that way, that you will have easy time buying and a hard time selling. What you want to do is you want to find, I mean, of course, if you buy it right, you can always sell it. But infill properties are typically properties over $100,000, so they're really kind of like the exception. They're like the higher priced properties. These are empty residential lots, empty commercial lots, properties that might be worth anywhere from $30,000 or $50,000, which is in our budget, or all the way up to $1 million. But you can get them in the city, and if the city is growing, then what often happens is that that there is no more free land, or not that much free land. So the builders that want to build something not in the suburbs and the exurbs, they have to either go down the path of tearing down existing houses, which means they have to buy them one by one and then get the people out and then tear it all down, or they go after infill properties. So there's a lot of markets right now where infill properties are really, really hot. And in those markets, especially where there's a lot of growth going on, I bet you infill properties are extremely hot right now in Atlanta, Georgia. They're also probably hot in San Diego, have always been. They're also hot in probably in LA. They're also hot in Houston, Texas, I would imagine. They're also hot in probably areas of Florida that are appreciating very quickly right now, and so on. Okay, so that's another method. Now, the typical buyer of an infill property is very clearly a builder. So these are deals that you don't sell to the average Joe out there. These are deals you sell to the builder. And when you sell them to the builder, well, the builders often have the cash to just cash you out. So it's a great source for just cashing out on deals and making quick $20, $30, $50, $100, $200,000 on a deal. Or you can also, if you have the funds to actually buy the deal in the first place, and you don't have to do like a double escrow, so, or just get an option. Sorry, I need to drink some water right now. Excuse me. All right, so in this case, yeah, they often have the cash to buy out, or if you have the cash to buy the property and don't need to put an option or something on it, then you can go and actually team up with a builder and perhaps do a joint venture with a builder and profit off the success of the development, meaning you can possibly multiply your success on there. But that's a little more advanced real estate investing and so on. So therefore, what we want to do right now is, after having said that, we want to go and actually show you a couple of examples of exactly how that works. So there we go. So here's the thing. So how do we find the value? How do we find properties? Well, we can do a couple of things. First of all, we can go on a tool that's called, let me see, which one is it? No, I guess I closed it by mistake, and that is findyourareatool.com. If you go to findyourareatool.com, so findyourareatool.com, you're going to get to a website that's called Free Map Tools. And the Free Map Tools website has a area right there in the homepage, or it's actually radius around point. So if you go to freeareatools.com, oh no, Find Your Area Tool, so findyourareatool.com, you can find all these things. And here's a cool part that you can do. Here's a map that shows you the entire world. So you can do this anywhere in the world. So let's see, you want to invest in Atlanta, Georgia. Alright, so if you do this, Atlanta, Georgia, here we go. Here is Atlanta, Georgia. You see that right there on the screen. Now what we want to do is we're going to put a radius of, now this is 1,000 kilometers. I don't want to do that. We want to put a radius of about 60 miles here. So 60 miles is about 100 kilometers. If you want to be really exact, we can go something like that and put that in. Now it measures in kilometers, but I think you can also just go in here and put it and just type it in here that you want to do 60 miles. Yeah, there we go, and it changes everything else. So we can just go in and say, like, want to be 60 miles outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Now if we draw a radius here, right? And now we go upstairs. Well, it's not listed. Alright, and perhaps we need to now I clicked on here. Now it gave me 60. I think that is not correct. This is more than 60 miles. So let's see, 60 miles, draw radius. Let's do what happens if we do this as 30 miles. Draw the radius. There we go. And I don't know how to delete the other one. I think we can. So in any case, we now have a radius that goes right behind, right outside. So I think ignore this. Let me see. We can also probably just go back and redo this, just to make sure this is live. So therefore we're struggling with technology a little bit, but we'll get it done. We'll get you to show how this actually works. So we're waiting for this to come up right now. In the meantime, we set Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, and now we go in here and we say 30 miles, draw a radius right over at Atlanta, and now it drew a radius that actually looks better now. Okay, now this radius looks cool. So there's Atlanta, there's Marietta, Georgia, there's Alpharetta, Georgia, and if you drive to Georgia, to Atlanta, you can pretty much tell that the city, well, there's suburbs all over the place here. And yes, there's already some rural areas down here probably, and there's also some rural areas, some green areas between here and Marietta, but not a whole lot. So perhaps 30 miles is even too big here. Perhaps we actually need to go and say 20 miles and draw that radius. Now that's going to draw another radius in here, smaller one. It didn't do it right now, but basically you see the point. There's a little tool that gets that. Now if you in parallel to this have a list that shows, actually there's a satellite picture. Let's see if that shows up here. What we can see if we go there, we can see that actually, yeah, the circle in this case should probably be a little smaller, but you can see from the light that there's lots of houses here, 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 there's all these white areas there, and so this entire area is pretty much built up. This all is built up, all this is built up, but then in the outskirts here, there's no more houses. So now what we need to do is just in parallel find a map of that shows the counties, and we can simply go to Google and say Colorado. Oh no, let's go here. Then here I want to go. Well, for some reason it puts it up there instead of down there. All right, let's put it down there. Colorado counties map. Now that might not be spelled properly, but here we go. Here's a map that we can bring up, and that map now shows us not just the map of Colorado, but also it shows us where the cities are in the map of Colorado. So we're just going to bring this back and zoom in a little bit here. Alright, let me see, where are we? Well, that didn't work again. So you get my point, but you basically bring this up and then you look at that and you see where the different counties are, and you overlay that with this. You kind of look at this at the same time and you see where all the little towns are, and you basically say wherever McDonough is, and wherever Peachtree City is, and wherever Douglasville is, or Carrollton, that's where we should be looking for land. Because at that, yeah, that's actually right. Somebody just pointed out, why in the world do I bring up a Colorado map if I'm looking at Georgia? That's a very good point. Thank you very much for making me aware of that. That's my mistake. Initially, I had thought about looking for Georgia, and that's where it's come. So Georgia counties map. All right. There we go, same thing here. And there's multiple counties map that we can bring up. We can bring up like this, a color-coded one, but a lot of those do not have, and thank you very much, Stephen, for asking actually in German, why Colorado. So the same thing, but if you look at the different kind of maps, we want to look for one that not only has the counties there, but also has the cities there. And that's the one we are looking right now. Let's see, if you want to view the image, there we go. Now this is a little better. We can see here, we can even zoom in further. There we go. So we can see the different towns and so on, Lakeland, Hamerville. Now, what there we look at? We looked at Georgia. Now here's things. So Georgia is actually, Atlanta is actually at the upper area of things there we go, there's Atlanta, and now we're looking at, there's Fulton County, Clayton County, Jonesboro, basically Fayette County. These counties around here is the counties that we're looking at, because you look at that, this is exactly where we want to be. We want to be like around there, Athens, Lagrange. Those are all areas that we can buy stuff, or where if we want to be in that first section that we talked about, right? If we want to be in that section of outside the major metropolitan areas. Now, if you want to be in the rural areas, right? If you want to be in the, let me see what we need here, which piece we need. If we want to be in the rural areas, obviously that doesn't play a role. In the rural areas, we can be anywhere out here. We can buy stuff in the Nantahala National Forest out here. We can buy areas in this forest. We can go pretty much anywhere we want to go in Georgia and buy some rural land for that. So that of course works too. So in the second session, the second option, basically, we can be anywhere as long as the price is right. Right? So now my computer doesn't really respond. It might be that there's too much going on here, but let's see. There we go. So now we can totally go after that. Now that's version number 1. And now if we want to go after infill properties, well, guess what? If we go after infill properties, we have to be right in Atlanta and in whichever county Atlanta, Georgia is. Now, if we're not sure which county Atlanta, Georgia is, we go to Uncle Google again and we say Atlanta, Georgia, county. And guess what? It tells us it's in Fulton County, which we kind of figured out because here's right now Atlanta, and here's the picture of Fulton County. So that worked out just hunky-dory, as one of my former co-workers 12 years ago when I still had a job set. She was from England. So, right? So that's very simply, it's how we do this. So now we have identified, based on what we want to do we either be right smack in Fulton County? Do we want to be in the counties around it? Or do we want to be anywhere where this is nice and pretty? Where is it nice and pretty? Well, we saw it looking at the map here, that theirs looks like a nice forest. There's some nice forest. And forest stuff is always interesting. There's some lake stuff here. There's some lakes and some rivers and so on. We can always go into these areas and then buy some properties there, because properties close to the lake, properties in the forested area, properties that are a 2 to 4 hour drive away from the metropolitan areas are great, or 1 to 4 hour drive away, because people still can make it on the weekend and go out there, and then they can come back at night and come back at the end of the weekend and still have had their fun. All right. So the next way you can go find this out is also you can go to eBay. eBay is a very cool way, particularly for land, because if you don't even know where to start, well, you can go to eBay. Now in eBay, what you do is you can search by category. Now there's all these categories here, but you can always go to all categories, and all categories under the letter R is real estate. So you can look for commercial, manufactured home, timeshares, other real estate, residential, or land. And if you go after land, what comes up when you go there is you get all these pieces of home land. So at any given time, there's several hundred pieces of land for sale on eBay. Now, they're all over the place, and they're listed kind of like this. You can either say, see all items on land, and then you get them shown like this. Or you can say, well, show me the ones that are only the ones that are auctions, or only the ones that are buy it now. Or you can say, show me the ones that are home sites, or recreational, or commercial mixed residential, or just very simply by state. So if you want to go by state, if you like, well, it lists here based on their popularity kind of. You can see Arizona has 52 properties listed right now, California 79, Colorado 34, Florida 66, Nevada 32, Oregon 10, Texas 16, and Washington 4. Now some of that changes over time, and we can also go and look at the total map here. And we say Virginia has 4 listed, Utah has 9, Texas 16, New Mexico 24, and so on and so forth. So you can now go and check the ones that you want and say, well, I want to see some in California, Florida, New Mexico, and wherever else your heart desires. Right? So if we say that, we can go, and now we're just getting what's for sale on eBay. Now the thing here is the reasoning. Why are we looking at eBay? Because the reasoning is that if people buy this stuff on eBay and successfully sell, and if other people successfully sell properties on eBay, then you can do the same thing. And now let's look at that. So for example, here's a property in Florida. Okay, my recording just backed out on me. I just had to restart it. So here's a 99-cent lot, but is it really 99 cents? Well, we can go and open this listing and take a look at it. The question is, it's probably, I would assume, not a 99 cents property. It's probably something where they charge seller financing for it. and it's going to load hopefully in a second. I don't know what happened with my internet. I guess while doing the call and being on the internet is too much for it, but it should be coming up in a moment. There we go. It's a residential lot. It even gives you the zip code where it's located in. Now, does that help you find an area? It gives you a map, and then it gives you a listing that just doesn't want to show up. So, well, let's see if let's give it another moment and let it load. While in the meantime, I go back here and look for some other ones. So there's some buy it nows and so on. And then what you have to look at. You see a lot of them have 0 bits. But you also have to look at what they are. So this one has a date to go, and it's somewhere in California Pines. There's a mountain log somewhere, and it has 0 bits because it's owner financing, and not necessarily somebody wants to pay the price that they're asking. So this is not for sale for $1. This is for sale with a down payment for $1, and perhaps an actual amount of thousands and thousands of dollars. So what we want to do is I looked at a few already. We want to go look at a couple that already opened because I realized that my internet is a little slow. And we want to see what else is out there. So for example, this is Florida. There's 14 people watching it, but nobody has bought it yet. An oceanfront, waterfront, lot for sale or trade. And what we can see, there's a property for $76, but it was seller financing. There's properties, and I don't see a whole lot of bids here right now, which actually tells us something. Well, if there's not a whole lot of bid, then we might not want to buy that exact kind of property. However, here let's look at it. Here's a property for sale, but that's already 49 bids. Still has 3 hours left, so it's probably going to end up in the $6,000-7,000 range. And this is a Florida waterfront fence duplex lot, and that once sold for $55,000. Now that's a pretty good darn deal here, right? So you can take this property, you can look at the pictures, and you can see, well, look at that. Well, it's actually doesn't look like it's really waterfront because there's no water here. Oh, this is the canal. The canal's supposed to be here. Well, it's just a tiny canal. It's not enough for a boat, I guess, but still, it's a nice lot. Oh yeah, there's the water here. It's a nice lot. There's some nice houses next to it, right? And it's nice and flat already, ready to build a house. Well, there's the water canal, and you can build something right away there. Now, on top of it, the interesting part of it for us to find an area, going back to finding an area, is you can actually find out where exactly that property is. Because they actually point it on the map. They give you exact the location of where it is on the map. Isn't that cool? Right? So they give you this, and if you still don't know where that is, you can pinpoint it there. And he says, like, well, this is Coral Gables, I think, here, and this is on the west side of Florida in this area, and it actually has an address here too if you want to pump it up bigger on your computer. You can take this off, and probably if we dive in, we can see some more things there too. So that's interesting. So could you go into that area and perhaps buy a lot like that for $1,500 and go sell it on eBay cash for probably $6,000 or $7,000, make a quick $5,000? Sure, absolutely you can do that. So Florida might be interesting, that part of Florida, and so on. Here, this one has 25 bits, and it's in Brooksville, Florida, wherever that is. It's assessed at $16,000, and it still has 2 days left, so it's not going to go. It's not going to go and come and end up at that amount. It's probably also going to end up in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. Here's one that has also 51 bits in there in Polk City. Now this is interesting. And then this one has 8 bits, but this one sounds like again a multiple one with seller financing and so on, and so on and so forth. Now. There's plenty of the other ones in there, so you can just monitor some of them and then see if you are satisfied with those sale results. Now, eBay doesn't get you, by the way. eBay for cash payment. So these were a couple of cash sales that we looked at, like the one that I'm zooming up there again. This one is a cash sale. Right? So this is not a seller financing sale, yet at the same time it's very, very cheap. Now, these are properties. eBay is currently not the best place for you to sell for cash. So whatever these guys doing, they're still. So that means if they're getting $6,000 or $7,000 for the property, that property is probably worth $30,000 or $30,000. So you could be. So that tells you if you go a different route of selling them. If you go the route of putting a sign on the property and putting it in the local newspaper there and advertising it online on for cash or even for a quick wholesale deal or with seller financing, you could probably sell this property for $25,000 with seller financing and not. So with seller financing and so on. So as a matter of fact, you could technically go and buy this here for $6,000 and sell it for $20,000 again with seller financing or $25,000 with seller financing. So the point is that what you see in cash sales is low prices, but it indicates there's activity. There's 49 bids have been placed. Right? There is 7 bids. There's 25 bids. There's 51 bids. There's 8 bids, and so on. There's 7 bids here. There's 2 more bids. There's 21 bids on this thing, and so on and so forth. And we can go on and on and on. We can go into other areas. This is a property in Arizona. This is actually minimum bid is started at 1 cent probably, and the 2 bids got it to $1. Now, is that something that is exciting? Well, it depends, because look at it. What they're actually doing here is they're selling this property. They probably bought this property for under $100. And they're selling it for $1,745 with $45 a month payments and 0 interest for 38 months. Now, chances are whoever buys this just pays them cash. But by selling it with seller financing, they're able to get more money for it. So therefore, again, this is Arizona. Let's see what else do we have here. Let me see. My mouse is not responding. There we go. Here's another one. Here's in Texas a property, $99 per month. Not yet any bids, but if you look at it, they're selling. The reason why they're not having any bids is because they're selling this really for $9,950. So if you can take a property like that and buy it for $500 or $1,000 and then sell this for $6,000 with seller financing or even for $3,000 or $4,000 for cash, that's probably a better deal than otherwise. So bottom line is, you go back and this listing never came up, so I guess they don't want to sell their listing. Bottom line is you go back up and you go to just all the land deals that you find there. So you go and actually by mistake exit out of there. So I'm going to go by category again, all categories, RE real estate, land, and then let's see. You can go by refine results or one of those two. And now we can say, let's look at Arizona land, for example. And then only Arizona land comes up. Here we see a whole bunch of properties that are being for sale that either have bids or that don't have bids. In some cases, many of them don't have bids, which that means that, hey, you might not want to do this or you might want to do this. For example, this one. Price slash $49 a month, mini ranch spot in Sunsets, Arizona, $20, 7 bids. So that's seller financing again, and so on. So you just look at that, or if you're not satisfied with that, you go to a different state. You'd say, now I want to see Texas, and you look at Texas and see what's up in Texas. Now in Texas, you'll see there's a property here that has there's 11 bids on this one, and that's there is 3 bids on this one. There is 1 bid here. There's 60 bids on this one. Now again, this is near Austin, Texas. 60 bids, still has 3 days to go. So this is another property. It's going to go into like probably the $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Who knows? It might. And you monitor these properties, and within a couple of days, you have a good picture of where stuff sells, on eBay at least. Now eBay is not the full picture, it just helps you, give you another indication of what you want to do. And then the next thing you do is you go to Google. That's another way you can find your area. And you go on Google, and if you said, hey, you want to do Colorado, now we get to Colorado, and say like, let's see, you want to buy stuff flip stuff in Colorado, you go see what do other people sell in Colorado. So you go put Colorado land for sale by owner or something up, and what comes up is a whole bunch of things. Brooks Ranch land. These are larger ranches. They're a little more expensive. You get Column land. You get Land Watch, of course. Rockies.com, Land and Farms, for sale by owner.com, Land Flip, and so on. Also, by the people that advertise here is Billy Land. He has been in the business since we have been in the business. It's one of the guys out there who've been flipping land probably the way we have. I've never talked to him. I don't know. But he doesn't teach it. He just does it. And we teach him to it. And he has been out here. So if we can look around, we find a bunch of stuff. Obviously, LandWatch has a bunch of properties. Now, LandWatch is more an aggregator of listings, so we don't know exactly what's selling, what's not. But some of these other ones that we have, Colorado land for sale, Colorado mountain land for sale. That's what it means, Colo MT, mountain land. So there's properties for sale, and not only we can see what's up there. So what we see here is we have Alpine parcels, Forbes Park is an area, St. Louis Valley, specialties. So we have all these different areas, and we can and he has a little axis of where he has properties, and we can go and we can just simply click on something like that. So click up Forbes Park, and the Forbes Park, so look at that, it's a gorgeous area. And then we see what's available for sale. And then we see here, unit 1, 2 acres, $14,000 cash, $16,000 financed, so $6,000 down, $200 a month, $58 a month, right? So, and again, this one, $12,000 or finance, $14,000, $9,900, $11,000, and so on and so forth. We can look at pictures, we can look at the different things, aerial information, and so forth. So we can snoop around and see what other people have for sale. Now, in some cases, they not only have stuff for sale, they also have listed stuff that they have already sold. So therefore, you can look at it that way. Billy Land. Now, I guess Billy Land also does auctions, and the current way has people bidding. There's 3 bids, 5 acres, and again Colorado. Different kind of pieces here available, and they have a day or two. There's pages and pages available. So I assume Billy Land does not only have his own land available anymore, but you can actually also put properties there with them, and they sell it for you. So that could be another way that you can sell your own land there too, right? So this auctions are land, but you can look at it. This is like 5 acres in different areas. You can check out if that is land that you like, and so on and so forth. All right. So this is basically what I wanted to cover here. This is the ways you find land. But before you go out and go crazy finding land, you want to ask yourself, what kind of land do you want to sell? Do you want to flip the land that's outside the metropolitan areas? Do you want to flip large acreage in rural areas, or you want to go after infill properties in cities that are growing? Well, depending on what you do, you have a different approach to the matter, and you have a different way to go about it. And so I showed you some ways today that you can go and you can go about and list them there, and then make a decision on what market you want to go after and what geography you want to go after. So now I have a couple of questions. Margaret is asking, what percentage of fees would eBay and PayPal get? Well, first of all, PayPal officially doesn't allow you to do land transactions through PayPal. So if you do them, ask them to send you a check, or they do pay you usually by PayPal. Just keep it on the low. Don't let PayPal know that you're doing land sales and getting paid via PayPal, because otherwise they shut down your account. But you can use this for a while. There's a whole bunch of people that have done it for years and years. They just don't ask PayPal about it, and they don't tell PayPal, and they ideally try to, I would think, run it to a different avenue. They perhaps get a down payment through PayPal, but they get the rest of it by check and so on. Now, PayPal charges, if you have a personal account, they charge almost nothing for it. They charge like a few bucks per transaction and so on, or almost nothing. And but if you have a merchant kind of account with them, a professional account with them, a business account with them, they charge like every credit card in the 2 to 3% range. Now, eBay does not charge a percentage, because that's actually percentage charging on real estate transaction is very heavily regulated in the U.S. by the real estate rules, basically by the rules of agency and so on. So basically, the only person that can make a percentage of a sale is a licensed real estate agent. eBay is not a licensed real estate agent. eBay is a platform where you put your property up and other people come and buy it from you. So therefore, eBay does not charge a percentage. What eBay charges is a flat fee of, depending on how elaborate your listing is, anywhere between $40 and $70 to put that property up there. Now, if it doesn't sell the first time, then you can relist it for like $25 to $30. Okay, so it's very inexpensive to do this and so on. But we didn't look at eBay right now to sell properties. We looked at eBay right now as a market research tool where we can find where other people are successfully selling properties and therefore go into their market and compete with them. Because the good news is if they do deals, that means you can do deals too. Okay? That's what I wanted to cover here. Now Stephen is asking, how about tax sales? Stephen, can you elaborate a little bit? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. Bottom line is, yes, you can go to tax sales and see what people buy there. I mean, absolutely. If you want to know where the market is, you can go to a tax sale that has a lot of properties for sale, a lot of pieces of land for sale, and just sit in the back and see what each different properties sell for, and you know whether some of the market and the competition and so on. Now, are tax sales a good source to buy land? Sure they are, but tax sales are also extremely competitive, so you need to know what you're doing, and you need to make sure that you have a proper guidance and that you get the right properties at the right price at the tax sale. Right? Absolutely. And tax sale also, they are a cash game. So that means you have to actually bring cash to the tax sale and actually pay the properties what you bid them up for right there at the auction, or within 24 hours you have to bring the cash. So what we're dealing with here is a opportunity that you can get directly to the owners, buy their properties for pennies on the dollar, and in many cases you don't have to buy the property ever. You can get them to give you a 90 days or 120-day option for the property, meaning you have the right to buy the property but not the obligation. And therefore, the good news is that when that is the case, you can back out anytime. Actually, if you have an option, if you do nothing, the option just expires and nothing happens. You will never be forced to buy that property in the first place. So therefore, an option is a good thing, versus at the auction, you actually have to come up with green cash right there and then, because if you're the buyer of the high bidder of the property, you got to pay for it. So doing it my way is a less cash intensive way, because you don't have to come up in many cases with any cash. You sometimes have the buyer before you actually had to buy the property, and then you just assign the contract, or you just go and do a double escrow on it. So you don't need any of your money in many cases. Now, if it's a tremendous deal and you haven't found a buyer by the time that the deal that the option expires or that the contract expires, then I suggest you do buy it, and then you own it. But then you bought it for the same or less money than similar properties come up for tax deed sale, and you had no competition. And right, I hope that makes sense. Soji is asking, how can I know the tax lien certificate holder for a land and I'm about to buy? I have an offer on. Well, Soji, you don't need. Well, you can go to the county and ask them to give you that information. In most states, the information on who owns the tax lien certificate holder is public, so you can actually look it up. You can see who owns that thing, because one of the things is that Yeah, you can either do that, or if you don't, if they don't get, well, if they say it's not public, right? It's a state by state kind of thing. If they say it's not public, well, then you can find out who owns it. All you need to do then is you flip the property, and in the process, you pay off the property taxes. You give that money then to the county for the property taxes, and they pay it to the tax lien holder. So unfortunately, it's the same thing. If you go to a title company, it's the exact same thing. So if you wanted to flip it to the tax lien holder, sorry, there's no elegant way to do this, short of you sending a letter to every single tax lien holder, because what is public is a list of all the tax lien investors, but it does not tell you which property they bought the tax lien on. It only tells you which that they're registered tax lien investors. Doesn't even tell you if they own 1 or 100. It just gives you a name and their contact information, so you can do that. Okay, so you should be able to get the list of all the tax lien investors at the county. Yes, should be able to get that list at the county. They should have something like a tax lien investor list that you can buy. Usually it costs like $10 or $20 to get that list. Often it has their mailing address and their information there, but as I said, it will not tell you who has what property they have bought a tax lien on. Now, if it's a small county, there might only be a few hundred names on there, and that might be worth sending each of them a postcard and saying like, hey, if you own a tax lien on XYZ property, I want to sell the property I just bought it, and I want to sell the property to you. If it's a bigger city or bigger county, there might be tens of thousands of names on that list. Okay? All right, so any other questions, guys? So if there's no other questions, what I wanted to do first is I actually wanted to say, so for more details on how to flip land, you just very simply go to landprofitgenerator.com, opt in there, put the name and email address there, give them, and then you'll see a video on, you see some of the land pieces that we bought, some of my filing cabinets, get a whole bunch of details about how this works, and then in the next few days there's a webinar coming up that you can watch that shows exactly how this all works. All right, so with that, we are about right now at the hour time, so I wanted to thank you for your attendance. I wanted to thank you. We had like the biggest crowd that we have had for a while on one of these calls. I'm very excited. That's good. We have weekly calls on these things, so almost weekly calls. So therefore, make sure you check out www.forevercash.com/schedule. Again, forevercash.com/schedule, which gives you the time and the dates of all these different events that we're having. And Bob, thank you very much, Bob, for your questions, and thank you also for the bottle of Jack Daniels that you brought me to our live event. I opened it up on Sunday, I believe, and I had my first little drink of the bottle of Jack, and it tastes delicious. Thank you very much. All right. Thanks, everyone, for your attention. You all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. And we will be posting this probably by the end of today already on our Gold site. So if you want to re-listen to some of it, you can. Thank you very much. And let me see what I bring here. And thank you very much. And you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.